Cincinnati Nonprofit Radio coverage of 18NTC, the Nonprofit Technology Conference 2018. We're coming to you from the Convention Center in New Orleans. The second interview of the second day of our coverage. All our NTC interviews are sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. My guests right now are Heather Martin, COO of Interfaith Family, and Alice Hendricks, CEO of Jackson River. Heather, Alice, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Nonprofit Radio. Pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
How's the conference going for you, ladies?
It's great.
Have you done,
Excellent.
Okay, great and excellent. Those are good superlatives. Have you done your session yet?
We did. We were on yesterday morning.
Okay, so it's all relaxing now.
Right.
Yep.
Nothing
Now we're
to worry
just
about.
partying.
Yes, drinks last night. No
Right,
problem.
exactly.
Okay, all right. Your workshop topic is working virtual, attracting and managing the best talent. I'm sure we have stats on how many orgs, nonprofits have virtual employees, or at least what the trends are. It's obviously growing, right?
It's
Otherwise
definitely
we
growing.
wouldn't be here.
And not only in
Okay.
the nonprofit world, in the for-profit world as well, and especially in tech.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. It's becoming, because of the technology that can enable easily to work from home,
Sure.
chat technologies, video conferencing, it's become a thing, and everyone is doing it now and exploring whether it works for their organizations a lot.
Let me dive into the word everyone. Not to quibble with you at all, but I was thinking of generationally, are there 50 and 60 somethings that are comfortable working, being virtual? Maybe we'll get to whether they're comfortable having virtual employees.
Right.
Maybe we'll get to that. Oh, my voice just cracked like I'm 14. We'll get to that. But how about being virtual employees themselves? Are they comfortable? I'm over 50, so I'll include myself in that. Are we comfortable doing that, or not too much?
I think it actually depends on the organization, and it's really dependent on the organization making the employee comfortable. And so I'm not sure, I don't know if you have any stats, but I don't know from an age perspective. There's a very good question about an older generation being comfortable having virtual employees under them and managing them.
We'll come to that.
However, as being the virtual employee, I think it's all about how the organization sets it up.
Okay, excellent. All right, so there's promise then for those 50, 60-somethings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about it since we're skirting around it. How about comfort or discomfort with having employees being virtual when you're over 50?
So I think that there might be an age discrepancy in the comfort. I also think it's just personality. And I'm finding that when I talk to a lot of people who are looking to work virtual and they're asking me, what can I do to go to my manager or my supervisor and quote unquote sell them on me working virtually, my answer to them is find out what the resistance is. There's part of the resistance is we've always done it this way. I need to see my employees to know that they're working.
Yeah.
And how do you get around that? Some of the key things that we talked about in our session are setting very clear goals and making sure that those goals are being met.
Let's go to Alice. Flesh out the goal setting a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's not that much difference in terms of goal setting, in terms of accountability for deliverables that you're supposed to be doing. So the real issue is communication, making sure you have a structure where there's frequent communication and proof that you're doing the deliverables. So you're measured not on a punch clock style of I get to work at 9 and I leave at 5 and therefore I must have worked during that 8-hour period. You're measured based on what is the work you were set out to do and did you actually do that work in the time period I said I would do it. So if you're a project manager or working on a program area, you work with your supervisor on here are the things that I'm going to get done at a particular time, and if that's not done, that could be a concern. That's a problem. But that'd be a problem in a non-workplace too. But rather than time, it's mostly based on work product.
Okay. So, and that should apply even if you don't have any virtual employees.
I think one of the things we found is that working virtually is the same, or managing virtually is the same as managing in an office, but you just have to be much more intentional about what you're doing, much more intentional about your communication, understanding that you're not going to have that water cooler conversation, that someone's not going to overhear something and understand where you are in a project and be ready to communicate with those people who are not physically in the office. But the management and the psychology of the management is very similar.
Okay, that's very interesting. That's valuable to know and make explicit. Yeah. How about attracting people to a virtual org, attracting the right talent so that we're comfortable that they're going to work in this work environment. What are your thoughts, Alice?
Well, there's two thoughts on that I have. One is
that...
that...
you looking at each other like, who's going to call on?
One is that your talent pool is the entire country or world, should you see fit. And there are wonderfully talented people in places that aren't in the city or town in which your organization is located.
Yeah.
And it gives you this ability to recruit from a wide place, and you can also hire incredibly talented people who have a wonderful lifestyle in a less cost of... In my organization, we have people who live in a lower cost of living state than Washington, D.C., where we're based. And that allows me to provide a living wage for my employees in that. But the other thing is just when you're recruiting, you have to be very mindful of the interview process. And I think one of the things we talked about in our session was helping people figure out who these folks, how well they'll respond to working virtually.
How do you do that in an interview? Go ahead. Who's best at that?
Heather.
So some of the things that we recommend, some of the things that we recommend is, number one, we use technology as a tool to enhance communication in a virtual environment. So sometimes you're using video conferencing just for a regular meeting, and you're talking through instant messenger, and there's other ways you're using technology. So in the interview process, I always recommend that people use the technology that you're going to require those employees to be using during their job. Yeah. If they can't do an interview on Skype or Zoom or appear in, and it's very uncomfortable, it's not to say that might not be a good employee for you, but you have to be aware that there might need to be some training or development on that tool for them. And going into that is important when you're hiring that person.
And if you see generally a discomfort with technology, that's a pretty big red flag.
Or a red flag that you might need to overcome, or that person's not right for the position. And then the other question is, some positions just don't lend themselves to working virtually. And you have to be aware of that when you're hiring also.
What are some?
Well, one of the easiest ones that we look at is if you're an office manager and you're managing the physical office space, it's really difficult to be virtual when you need to notice that there's a crack in the ceiling or the vendor needs to deliver something and be there for them.
I was thinking, we don't have a tool for measuring the coffee level.
Right, exactly. Remotely.
In the cabinet, remotely. Okay.
There's an app for that. You can probably.
Okay. Office manager. Any others that stand out to you as? I
think it depends on the industry and what the job you're doing. If you're someone who does intake, or you have to be there to welcome people into the office, you need someone physically there. There may be hybrids, where sometimes people could work in the office and sometimes people can work from home. And I think thinking this through before you move to a virtual environment or virtual job for that specific role is key. You can't just say, okay, tomorrow we're just going to go virtual.
So Alice, how do you create this environment that's going to be hospitable to virtual?
I mean, it's all about culture. You have to create a culture where everyone is communicating well with each other, where people know what the expectation is on response times of communication.
So it's got to start at the top then.
It has to start at the top.
There has to be a willingness at the CEO
Absolutely.
level to accommodate virtual employees. Okay, so it starts there, and then how does the CEO trickle it down?
You adhere to it. So rather than walking from my office into someone else's office and telling them what I think they should know, that maybe two other people who aren't physically there also need to know, I will do that on a Slack channel, for example. So I'll use an instant messenger chat program, and I'll put them all on the channel and talk to them all together at once.
Even though two of them are
even if that's the situation.
within
because it requires amount of discipline, because you don't want to leave people out. The interstitial conversation that happens at the water cooler can also be done virtually, and that's pretty important too.
Okay, excellent. All right, we're going to get to tools, because you mentioned Slack, a Slack channel. Is that a tool?
Yeah.
Okay. A chat. It's a simple chat.
It's a chat software.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're over my head, but I'm trainable. I could be a virtual employee. Trust me.
Yeah, we might have some technology challenges there, but we can get you there, I think.
I'll be the remedial.
You got
employee,
the radio stuff down.
I'm very good at that. I mean, I got knobs and everything in front of me, buttons and all. Yeah. I don't know what they do, but okay. What else? Anything else about creating the environment, making it hospitable?
I think some of the things.
Anything more?
Some of the other things are making sure that your remote employees have the tools, whether it's the technology or even a monitor to go along with that laptop that you've given them. Because some people go into a new job, they're given a laptop, they say work from home, and it's not as easy as just is your home office conducive? And being able to help them think through what are the things that they need to set up in a virtual environment to make them successful and effective at what they're doing. We talk about a little bit about security and knowing what the security measures are. You can't go into a coffee shop and work from your computer. Number one, are you on the Wi-Fi? Are you on the public Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Are you
Oh
on
my
a
gosh.
virtual private network? Are you using your hotspot? Or you have to go to the bathroom and your computer's sitting in Starbucks. Do you leave it there and ask the person next to you to watch your computer while you go to... I mean, we set policies around these things, especially in organizations that have a lot of regulations on data and accessibility for their information. These are things you have to think about when you're creating a virtual environment.
Okay. Yeah, it could be HIPAA. It could be, what's the credit card? PCM?
PCI.
PCI. Okay. What do you do when you're at Starbucks alone? You're on a VPN, virtual private network, but you have to go to the bathroom. You got to close up your laptop.
You use the diaper changing table, and you pull it down in the restroom and put your laptop on that.
Okay.
Take care of your business.
Okay. All right. This is very interesting. All right. No, I love the nitty gritty. This our listeners.
I
love
mean,
it too.
we're all about real life here.
Yeah. we need the detail. All right. So you need clear policies around
Written policies that people sign, and everyone is very well aware of what the security policies are.
data protection, use of technology,
Yep.
use of the companies versus your personal technology, home versus away from home. Okay. Yeah. All right. Help me out here. Anything else? What else belongs? I'll just ask you. What else belongs in our policy?
Well, so we're talking about there's communication policies.
Thank you.
I mean, one of the things that we found when we first started having more virtual employees, we started as an in-office. Everyone was in the office, and as we grew into different communities, we had employees in different cities and states than our headquarters were located in. And things like when I send an email, I just need you to acknowledge that the email was sent. If you're in the office and I send you an email and you haven't responded, I could walk into your office and say, hey, did you get my email? Even if you're not ready to respond to it, I know you've gotten it, and by 5 o'clock that day, I'll get an answer.
Yeah. All right.
When someone's virtual and you send an email, you have no idea if it got lost, did it go into their spam, and you have to get some kind of communication
You
going.
just want a quick got it.
So
Got-
we set a communication policy that says if I asked you something or requested something, you send an email back saying, I got it, and I'll get back to you by Wednesday. Period, the end, it's all set. And so that you need to be very much more aware of those types of things.
Yeah, it's
and
the
other
intentionality awareness that you talked about earlier.
So we have
Yeah,
communication policies that go along with that.
yeah. Okay. Alice, you want to add to our policy statement at all?
I mean, the security, I think,
else?
is the most important. You know, the
Okay.
email security, the hacking potentials, you know, what happens also when someone is let go. The lockout procedures, they have access to all of your
Excellent,
systems, and
yeah.
they're, you know, in North Dakota somewhere at a coffee shop. You have to shut down all of their access to things. So all of that needs to be planned at the IT level in the company. What are you going to do, and how are you handling staff with remote devices?
Can we do this if we don't have a dedicated IT staff person?
Yeah, we don't have a dedicated
Where-
IT staff
Okay,
person,
excellent,
so,
excellent,
so
okay.
yes, it's
Interfaith. So the Interfaith family says the answer is yes. Okay, because we're small and mid-sized nonprofits in this audience
Yep.
of listeners. So
You onboard someone with technology. When they leave, you do the same thing, only with a virtual person, you don't physically have them there. And so you have to do the same thing you would do if someone was in the office, but make sure you can do it while they're not physically there. How do they get their computer back to you? Do they FedEx it to you? Are you going to go pick it up somewhere if they're not there? And so just those types of things need to be thought through.
yeah, okay. Excellent. I love the policy statement details, because this is stuff you have to think through, and then Alice, to your point, you know, it has to be activated, implemented on, and from the top.
Absolutely.
You can't just have a policy and ignore it. You know, if it's the CEO, I don't know. I'm trying to think. If it's a C-level person who's distant, you know, they too have to say, I got your email, and I'll get back to you by Wednesday.
Everybody
You know,
has to
they do-
play by
yeah,
the same rules.
yeah.
There shouldn't be exceptions or any accommodations for
Right,
anything else,
right.
yeah.
Okay. How about let's talk about some of the needs that your remote staff has. We've been talking a little about like managing the office. What special needs do the people who we only see a couple of times a year have?
That's a great
Go ahead,
question.
Alice. Oh, thank
I mean,
you.
I think they
we're
need...
halfway in. It took that long, but all right. I'll take it. All right.
I mean, they need community. They need a partner. They need a buddy. They need to know that they're not all alone. So frequent meetings, daily stand-up calls, and Heather's organization,
What's a
they do
stand-up call?
a stand-up call. Well, it's a phrase for a daily time when you just spend 15 minutes sort of going around the company saying who's doing what that day, or a team if you're working on a project together.
Okay.
You know, everyone's together on either a video chat or a conference call, or it could even be on a Slack channel or a Skype group or a Google Hangout or any type of technology that people can come together for a period of time. The more frequent that happens, the more connected they feel. And there is an issue of feeling lonely. It's not that you're just going off in your back room and typing all day long on your own. You need to be part of a community and part of a team, and the technology helps enable that. And at Heather's organization, a buddy?
So anyone who is new who comes on board, there's a couple things we do. One is, no matter what level you're at, you come to Boston for a couple of days to onboard. So you actually see physical people.
That's probably essential.
It was one of my key learnings when I started working virtually, to know that there's a physical person and a physical space, or just meeting someone face to face gives you much more of a connection to them immediately. The other thing we do is when we hire people, we give them a partner. So we hire an associate director in LA, and we put them with the associate director in Atlanta. This is not a mentor. This is not a supervisor. This is someone you can ask the dumb questions to. How do I get my expenses paid? Or, I'm sure they told me this during orientation, but I don't know what to do about X, Y, and Z. And just having that person that you can go to is critical, especially when you're by yourself in an office or in your home, and you're trying to go up the learning curve of starting a new job.
Okay. All right. What else? Anything else to be empathetic to our remote employees?
Again, this is a typical management. I would say this, you should be doing this anytime, is just everyone's intent is good. Assume that it's good and there's a good intent all the time.
That could be, that's going to have implications for chatting,
anything.
Email. You'll never hear not never, but most of the communications, you're not going to hear the inflection in the person's
You don't
voice.
see sometimes you don't see the physical, you don't see the physical, you don't get the inflection. And so before you jump into anything, someone and I get this all the time, someone sends me an email and says, I need blank. Well, that can be taken in so many different ways. Are you demanding something from me? Did I not get you something? There's so much in just those 3 words. And so my first thing is they have good intentions. Let me follow up. You need blank by when? What is this for? Get more information. They're not. Now, they could be you haven't done something. I need it now.
They could be screaming at you.
It could be screaming at you.
But the default is...
The default is not to do
intention.
that. And what we do actually is we have everyone create a communications charter that says how they like to be interacted with. And so I understand if you are one of these people who sends very short emails. I also have the flip side where someone sends me 7-paragraph emails to describe one thing. And so if I understand how you interact, I could read that email with that understanding, not to immediately assume that you're yelling at me in the email.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Very valuable. Anything else? Anything else to be supportive? Or again, empathetic to the remote employees? Or if we covered it, we covered it. But I want to make sure we.
The only other thing I can think of is definitely getting together at least once a year with the whole team.
At least
the culture building.
At least once. Yeah. I'm not even sure.
It's tough. It's tough in a nonprofit environment where you've got a very tight budget. But we have prioritized an all-in-person meeting in Boston. So we've got staff in California, and Chicago, in Atlanta, and Philadelphia. We make sure that we try in our budgeting process to bring everyone to Boston for 2 days during the summer, not only for good brainstorming and thinking and strategy conversations, but also so they can connect with each other and have that community and build that in-person conversation and feel comfortable with each other.
Yeah. And you feel like once a year is sufficient?
If I had the budget to do it more, I would.
Or you do it a little longer, but...
all of that, yes. So you have to take it for what it's worth. One of the tools that we talk about is the airplane. I mean, yes, it's expensive, but it's a really helpful tool to really get past some of the boundaries that are put up when you don't actually physically meet in person.
Alice, do you have virtual employees also at Jackson River?
Yeah, 30.
30 remote employees?
The entire organization is virtual.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's is there a physical office?
There is a physical office with 3 people in Washington, D.C. That's it.
10%.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so we all behave as if we're virtual. And there are many days that I don't go into the office. So, and it saves a lot of money in transportation costs. It saves dry cleaning bills for everyone. It saves childcare expenses.
Yeah.
It's a very great way to have a lifestyle because you have that flexibility. There's also downsides to it. There are days that I wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. and check email, and all of a sudden it's 2 and I haven't eaten breakfast yet, and then I'm on till 6 at night. So the same type of work-life integration needs to happen in a virtual environment as well as a physical office space. You need to know how to take a break.
You mentioned saving childcare expenses. So the remote employee, it needs to be understood that the remote employee may not be immediately accessible, right? For a quick, for a last minute, we got to talk right now.
So I think it's about,
they might have something going on that is going to hold them up for 10 or 15 minutes.
We try and make sure that people have adequate coverage to do their job during the day, the hours that they need to work. So we have a lot of employees that are at 30 hours a week because they want to spend more time with their families. Older children can be met at the bus stop and take care of themselves for a few hours in the afternoon, but the expectations of performance are still there. We are pretty high, have high standards of that. We don't want you to be distracted from your work.
How do you manage the West Coast versus East Coast? What is the West Coast people have to do? The West Coast people have to start at 6 a.m. local time?
I think a lot of people do different policies on that. Our policy is that you work for the business day in the time zone in which you live. So it's sometimes hard if we're dealing with Europe and the West Coast at the same time because the time zones don't overlap as well.
Do you have employees in Europe?
We don't have employees in Europe, but we do have clients in Europe. So it's a situation where we do have to manage that. But there are organizations that have West Coast people working East Coast hours.
There are, yeah. Do you have that issue?
We don't
have
as explicit policy that you work those hours, but we ask people how early on the West Coast, how early would you be willing to have a meeting? So we will not set meetings with some people. Some people are early morning people, and they would rather work from 7 to 3 rather than 9 to 5. And so we'll work with your schedule individually. And so there are some meetings I will have on the West Coast at 7 o'clock in the morning, but that's due to that person willing to do that meeting.
Yeah. We have a few minutes left still. Let's talk about some of the tech tools. Alice, I got to ask you about Slack. Slack.com, how do we find it? What does it do for us?
Slack.com, that's how you find it. It's equivalent to Skype, or there's Google Chat, any type of chat software where everyone can log into, and then you can make groups in them. So the term for a group in Slack is called a channel. And in our organization, we have a channel one of the channels is named Lunch. And if you're going to be away for 20 minutes or going to lunch, we just Slack everyone who's in the company on that channel and say, hey, stepping away for a bit. I'll be back in half an hour. Right. So we are all it's almost as though you would see me walk out the door, and instead of walking out the door, I'm just telling that channel what's happening.
Yeah.
There's channels for each project. So Slack is a good one. Skype is a good one.
Slack is already a verb. You Slack someone.
You Slack someone.
It's a verb already.
Well, you Skype someone. You chat someone. Do you remember AOL Instant Messenger? That was a one. You might have used that one, right?
Yes, yeah, I've heard rumors.
You could use that too.
I was never AOL. I was Hotmail, but okay. So Slack for chatting, a quick chat. How about document sharing? Is it as simple as Google Docs, or is there something better?
It's as simple as Google Docs. Microsoft has a great You're using Microsoft products,
we use,
right?
Microsoft's OneDrive, SharePoint. Microsoft Suite has a document sharing software, a cloud-based saving system. Skype for Business is integrated with it, and so we're using that in the office. And then there's a ton of independent ones out there, and whether it's video conferencing, or it's document sharing, or it's chatting. There's a ton out there, and I think it could be overwhelming. And for us, it was evaluating what was best for our organization and what our upper management was able to use. We talked about this before, is modeling the behavior you want from your staff. And so getting upper management on board was key. So one of our project management softwares, we use Asana. And we've tried 3 or 4 of them, and our CEO liked Asana. And so if she was going to use Asana, we're all going to use Asana. Yes. And so I think that's really important. It's got to be easy to use and work for your organization.
Okay. Calendaring, simple as Google
Shared
Calendar?
calendaring, yeah.
You have any other tools besides Google Calendar?
We're using Outlook's calendar.
Outlook,
yeah.
Okay. Microsoft again.
Yep.
All right.
I think
what other categories do we need to...
Video chat. Video is really important.
You mentioned Skype a couple times.
You can do video with Skype. You can do video with Google Hangouts. But anytime you can actually have an opportunity to see someone's face, and most of the calls we try to do as videos, and we find that works really, really well.
You prefer, yeah. All right. Again, the sense of community.
And if you can't get together, that's almost the next best thing. And video has come a long way. The technology is more seamless than ever before.
Yeah.
And so at least you're seeing the person. You might not get all of the nuance of the physical that's in the room, but you can see an emotion, or you can see a reaction to something, which is super helpful.
Or their cat walking across
The cat.
their laptop.
We get a lot of pets walking in front of the camera while people are on video.
So this can be a lot of fun too. I mean, talking about cats, but you know, I mean, you have 30 virtual employees, Alice. You have fun doing it? I mean.
Oh, it's awesome. It's completely awesome. I love it. And you know, the best thing is that people have really formed strong relationships with each other. When you ask them what they like most about working here, is they say each other. They say the people. I'm here because I have connected relationships with other people on the team. And to be able to create a culture where people feel connected to each other in a remote environment is like, that's the thing I'm the most proud of anything we've ever done. It doesn't have to do with our software product or what we've done to impact nonprofits. Is the fact that we've had a culture of people that have had a wonderful time working and doing productive, impactful things.
Has Jackson River always had the largest proportion of employees virtual?
Yep.
Or from the beginning.
From the beginning.
So it was in the culture to start. Yeah.
Yep.
How about Interfaith Family?
We started as a 2.5-person organization in the same office. We got to probably about 8 to 10 people in the office, and then our growth took us into different cities and communities, and that's when we became virtual because of the growth. And so we're probably half in the office in Boston, and then half of our staff is outside. There's 1 or 2 people in a city by themselves.
We're going to leave it there.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. They are Heather Martin, COO of Interfaith Family, and Alice Hendricks, CEO of Jackson River. This interview, sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. And this is Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of 18NTC. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Real pleasure.